hello, friends, and welcome to the Imago Nutrition Podcast. My name is Mark. I am here with Danielle, our registered dietitian extraordinaire and business partner, and happens to also be my sister-in-law. And so we are excited to be back for another episode together. Our podcast is dedicated to answering your questions and giving you practical nutrition strategies to help you and your family flourish. And today is going to get very, very practical, I hope in a very fun way. And so if you are someone that finds yourself continually wanting to perhaps eat healthier or eat in accordance with your goals, but you really struggle to build the right habits in order to do so in a sustainable way long term, I hope that this podcast episode will be a terrific introduction to a new way to think about doing this so that you can have a very approachable, low wear and tear methodology to begin slowly, sustainably building habits so that ultimately you can enjoy more positive health outcomes for you, your family, long term. So if you have a question or a topic you would like us to touch on, feel free to send that to us. You can do so by going to our website, imagonutrition.com. That's IMAGO, nutrition.com/podcast. There's a form there. You can just fill that out real quick. You can send it our way. And we will consider that as a future topic for an episode. And so, Danielle, we've just touched on this briefly ahead of coming into this. Obviously, we've done our homework, but today we're going to be talking about applying what's known as the 4 laws of behavior change to nutrition. And so I'll maybe kind of set us up and then start walking us through. I'm excited to hear some of your notes because a lot of times we like to compare, notes on the fly, and we're going to be doing a bit of that today. But let me start by saying we're going to take a very cursory look, so just a scratch the surface look at these 4 laws and where they come from and how you can apply them to nutrition. And so I will, if you're cool with it, I'll kind of walk us through these laws and some kind of nuggets of wisdom from a book in which people can read more about these. And then I'd love for us to kind of compare some notes about how to actually implement these with nutrition in our day-to-day lives. And if you agree with me, I think people might be a little surprised at how seemingly small, right? And almost like super basic techniques and ways to go about this is actually some of the most profound ways. So, and by the way, hi, I haven't let you say anything yet this episode. So no surprise, Mark is rambling again, but school's in full swing up there in St. Louis, same down here in Nashville. So how are you guys enjoying the tailing off of summer? Because it still feels like summer, but the kids are back in school, which I think is a little vicious. But how are you guys doing up there?
It's good. The first week was a little long, but, we'll get through.
They're getting in there.
Getting the routines.
Yeah. How are the boys? Yeah. How are your boys liking their classes, their teachers?
Good. They don't give me very much information at all because they're boys. I like recess, PE, and lunch. That's all I get.
Those boys are after my own heart. We get a lot of the same down here. We just get, good. We're trying to pull more from Maisie, our baby girl. She was struggling a little bit at the beginning. It's 3rd grade year for her, kind of a big year, But so she's getting into it more. We're a couple more weeks in. So
yeah.
Anyways, all right. Well, I'm excited to get into this with you and kind of workshop some practical application for this. But let me start by saying again, this is just a scratch the surface conversation about these 4 laws of behavior change. Okay. And what this is pulled from, just a few starter nuggets, are pulled from an incredibly powerful book that I have to admit. So if you're listening, I'm going to get vulnerable here. I have been quoting this book for years. I have been quoting this author for years, and I'm in the publishing industry full time. So I'm supposed to be a bit of a book guy. I'm supposed to consume quite a few books. He's not part of my publishing house. Okay. So all that's to say, I finally this summer read Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is a perennial. I think that book has sold maybe 14, 15 million copies now. It is a perennial work that draws in from many different scientific sources. So James is not purporting to be crafting anything necessarily new or novel in this arena. He's not necessarily a scientist. He's not necessarily a researcher, a psychologist, or anything like that. But he's drawing in from various behavioral psychology, cognitive disciplines, and he is amalgamating that into a work that is very approachable. It is incredibly in depth when it talks about habit formation. And I think the subtitle of the book is Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. So Atomic Habits, Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results. And that's a bit of like what I was setting up at the top, which is you'd be surprised kind of how small and practical some of these steps are, but that's actually what it takes to build, kind of long-term success. So all that's to say, hat tip to James Clear. If by chance, James, you're listening to this, love your work, reach out. Would love to say hi in person. But the book is Atomic Habits. And in this, he talks about what he calls these 4 laws of behavior change. Okay. And so let's talk about this real quick. I also wanted to set up at the top real fast. One of my favorite things and where I have been quoting this book, though I had not read it yet, most often was his take on this idea of goals versus systems. Right now, I know systems sounds kind of mechanical and burdensome, but it's very, very beautiful. And when we talk about behavior and habits, that's really actually what we're talking about is systems. We have built these systems into our life, whether we know it or not. And what he's going to do is help us understand how we can utilize systems to progress toward our goals, as opposed to just subject ourselves to systems and carry on with our current path. So one, real quick, just want to talk about this difference between goals and systems, because what we're going to lean into is the systems piece, right? And there's great things to be said about goal setting. Don't get me wrong. But what we're going to be moving from is not just like you have this goal to eat healthier, you have this goal to lose weight, you have this goal to build muscle, you have this goal to have more optimal health outcomes, whatever that is, for your kids to eat better, for them to be more nourished, ... right? All these different things. It's great to have those goals, but the question is, do you have the systems in place to achieve them? So here's a couple quotes. I'm just going to pull some legit just quotes. I'm quoting James Clear now from Atomic Habits. These are just 5 real quick quotes to kind of give us an overview of this mindset of shifting from goals to systems. Number 1, I love this. It's like a subhead of a part of a chapter. He says, forget about goals, focus on systems instead. Now, he's not saying it's not good to have goals, because the next quote is, goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the process that leads to those results. Okay. And so goals are great. It's okay to have them, but systems are about actually achieving them. Okay. So while he says forget about goals, focus on systems, what he's really saying is like, don't focus so much on the goals. Right? Waking up every day, I need to lose weight, 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 I need to lose weight. Right? How about saying, hey, I'm going to be losing weight over the next couple course of the months, and waking up and saying, here are some systems I'm going to put in place. Here are some things I'm going to be doing. Right? I want my kids to be healthy and to grow strong. Here are some systems that I'm working on to achieve that goal, as opposed to just focusing on the goal and stating that over and over in my head, but not actually doing anything. So that was 2. Here's a third quote. Goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress, right? So goals are okay. I want to lose weight. I want my kids to eat healthier. Terrific. That's great. That's maybe 1% of what should be going on in your mind. The other 99% should be the systems, okay? Another quote, if you're having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you. The problem is your systems, okay? And then this is perhaps my favorite. I have quoted this probably since the book came out. I've known of this quote forever, but again, confessed I hadn't read the book. I think it's the most powerful quote on this idea of goals and systems, if not the most powerful quote in the entire book, to be honest. James Clear says this, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. It assumes that we are going to fall. The question is, what's going to catch you? Goals don't catch you. They're not that net that catches you when we inevitably fall, myself included, right? So you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And so you can imagine, as you bring your systems up to the level of your goals, that's then how you actually achieve your goals, irrespective of perhaps your personal proclivities or your experience or how it's gone in the past or what you're dealing with. The systems are really that safety net that catch you. So last thing as I set this up, and then we're going to get into it. There's something that's known as the habit loop. Okay, so this is drawn from outside of James Clear. He drew this into the book and then distilled it into a framework. But I wanted you to kind of see the underpinnings of the 4 laws of behavior change. The 4 laws of behavior change come from what's known as the habit loop. This is a 4-step pattern behind every habit. So if you examine the habits in your life, whether good or bad, your brain has and continues to sequence through these 4 steps. Okay, number 1, there's a cue. Number 2, there's a craving. It's not always related to food, by the way. Okay. Number 3, there's a response. And number 4, there's a reward. You will see that 4-step process, that 4-step pattern is continually and yes, habitually worked through time and time again with any array of habits. We're not just talking about food. This is behavioral psychology, right, at work in respect to how we perform lots of different habits, not just food, though we're going to be talking about food today specifically. So from this 4-point or 4-step habit loop of cue, craving, response, reward, James Clear in Atomic Habits has created a framework that he calls the 4 laws of behavior change. Okay. So what he's going to do is he's going to take those 4, cue, craving, response, and reward, and he's going to say, here is what you must do to execute on that inherent process to build better habits long-term. Okay. So number 1 is to make it obvious. That's the cue. Okay. So we're going to talk about that. Number 2 is to make it attractive. That's the craving. Number 3 is make it easy. That's the response. Number 4 is make it satisfying. That's the reward. Okay. So again, this is not necessarily what to think about your habits, but this is how to think about your habits. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. All right. So let's begin, Danielle. Finally, that was a nice long setup. All right, we're in. So I hope that has at least given people a primer on what we're trying to accomplish and where it's coming from. So we're going to go through these 4 laws, just talk a little bit about what they are, maybe some more nuggets from the book, and then Danielle and I are going to workshop some examples of how you could begin to think about these, okay? So number 1 is make it obvious. All right, so a couple different things that we can talk about here. 1, I would say start with what James Clear calls an implementation intention. Okay, what that means is I want you to actually write this down. Okay, and I'm going to give you an example in my own life where I recently did this and it has been working, because I've confessed that I've tried to learn Italian for probably like 20 years now. I keep telling myself I'm going to learn Italian. I'm going to learn Italian. This is my year. It's my New Year's, and it just has not ever taken place. Though I have started, I've always stopped. Recently, that has changed thanks to James Clear in his book. So what I want you to do is write down this sentence. I will, and then insert your behavior at, and then insert the time that you're going to do it, in, and then insert the location you're going to do it, so that I can become, and then insert the type of person you want to be. Okay, so I will, behavior, at, time, in, location, so I can become, and then the type of person you want to be. Here's what I did when I was reinvigorated in my desire to learn Italian. Here is my implementation intention. I will study Italian for 15 minutes every weekday morning with my morning coffee, so that I can become someone who speaks and understands a second language. Okay, because there's some identity wrapped up in that, right? So I will study Italian for 15 minutes every weekday with my morning coffee, so that I can become someone who speaks and understands a second language. So that's the first part of making it obvious, is actually declaring this. And I would say actually write it down. Like actually put it on paper, put it on your refrigerator, put it on your nightstand. Shoot, make a wallpaper for your phone so that every time you open up your phone, you see that, okay? Make it obvious by stating clearly what you intend to do and the behavior at the time, the location, because of the type of person you want to become. Make that obvious, okay? Then number 2, let's talk about also applying that first law to actual nutrition habits, right? So Danielle, let's kind of workshop a couple things. I would, and I don't want to cross over too much, so maybe we'll just kind of ping pong back and forth. Here's how practical this is. A lot of people are like, I want to eat healthier. I'm like, all right, open up your fridge. What is the first thing you see? Right? Like, now that may sound silly, but it's not. You have to make it obvious. So I would say, 1, have healthy foods available. It sounds rudimentary, but it's true. Like, I want to eat healthy. And yet, if Danielle and I went to your house, what would we find? Think about that. Be honest with yourself. Open your fridge. What's the first thing you see? What are the first things you see? What is the meta narrative of your fridge saying? Is it saying I'm someone that wants to eat healthy? Or is it saying I want to eat healthy, but I'm not actually doing anything to actually do it? So I would say, 1, have foods, and maybe I stole yours because we didn't compare our notes on this, but like literally make it obvious. Put them at the very forefront of what you see. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yes, I did have change your environment. So I often tell people to put, fruits and veggies on their counter in bowls,
yes.
Or move the fruits and the veggies on the top of the fridge and not hidden in those drawers.
Yep.
But I think what you were talking about with that statement, would it be something like you say, I'm going to, cut vegetables every time I come home from the grocery store? How many times a week are you going to commit to going to the grocery store? So sometimes we're just not going to the grocery store as often as we need to. And then that's when the convenience foods come up. So I just was curious what your thoughts are of the statement that you had.
Totally.
What would be some things besides, of course, eating healthier? It's kind of like the statement you just said with inserting those words, is similar to having a goal with, making attainable. I think it was like a SMART goal, right?
Yeah,
so specific, measurable, attainable.
Yep.
So that's kind of like what this is for the system.
Totally.
Side of it, to give some parameters to help with making it happen.
It's such a great question. I would say, of course, I'd say start with 1, but this could be applied to many different things. So here's an example. You could write out that statement and say something like, I will grocery shop once a week, right? After my Starbucks run, right? So you go get Starbucks, you go to the grocery store, we'll talk about why that is, right? And purchase the types of foods that are in accordance with my goal so that I can become someone, that eats healthier. The other thing I would say, the other example, and I might use this through as we go through all 4, is you could even do this at a very step-by-step level. So it might be, I will eat a healthier breakfast, even though I sometimes cringe at the word healthier, right? Because it's just so hard to define. I know. It's like, I will
eat a high protein,
I will eat a perfect. Thank you. I will eat a high protein, high fiber breakfast every morning with my morning coffee, or after my morning coffee, or with my kids, or at the kitchen island at 7 a.m. or outside, right? So that I can become the type of person that has long-term sustainable positive health outcomes, right? Or something like that. Now, I know that's some of my language, but you can see how it can start with just breakfast. It could start with just, I will consume 18 ounces of water every morning as soon as I get out of bed, right? Before my shower in the kitchen, so that I can become someone that is more properly hydrated throughout the day. It can be that minute, and it probably can and should be. Again, one of the issues I had with studying Italian is I would get all excited and I'd want to go study for an hour and a half. And then I would fall and stumble. I have to force myself now. I've been in it for several weeks now. I have to force myself to stop at 15 minutes. Why? Because now it is becoming habitual, right? And I do want more, but I am saying, look, if I can at least do 15 minutes stacked over, 300 something days a year, I'm going to be far better than going all in for 1 or 2 weeks and then falling out of practice. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But in answer to your question, yes, it can be about grocery shopping. It can be about your food selection. It could be about your breakfast routine, your lunch routine, your workday routine. right? But I would say keep it very specific. And they would say that two of the most powerful cues are time and location. James
Mm-hmm.
would argue two of the most powerful cues, because we're in the cue stage, is time and location, actually saying time and location that you're going to do this. So it could be, I'm going to eat a high protein, high fiber breakfast at 7 a.m. in my kitchen every
Mm-hmm.
day so that I can become the type of person that experiences greater health outcomes, something like
Yeah.
that. And start there. So
I wonder if it came from habit stacking, or if that was mentioned in the book.
it
Just
is
that, like, if you have, things you do all the time, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, you
correct.
get ready for bed, have coffee. So having those cues, like you said,
Yeah.
stacking
Yep.
it
And
with
that's a
habits
technique.
already there.
Exactly. That's a technique that he goes into more depth in the book, and that's why for two reasons. One, because it's habit stacking, and two, because it makes it attractive to me. That's why I stack my studying of Italian with my morning coffee, because I know I'm going to have my morning coffee, and I know I'm probably just going to sit and fart around on my phone when I'm doing it, and I have my morning coffee out back around the fire pit in the sun. And so I know that's going to take place. So why not execute 15 minutes toward my ultimate goal of learning Italian with something that I love doing? I look forward to my coffee. So now I've learned to also look forward to studying Italian in 15-minute increments. So
Mm-hmm.
you're right. Habit stacking is powerful because what you're doing is you're attaching it to something that already exists. So
Mm-hmm.
exactly. What else? Any other thoughts? I know we've talked about it kind of practically at that micro level, but having those healthier foods available, actually having those foods, fruit out in the open. We have two different bowls. We've got one on our island and then one on our counter. When you open up our fridge, I did this over the weekend. I was like, "Ooh, am I actually practicing what I'm preaching?" And I opened it up, and I almost took a picture. I didn't want to be like too weird about it, but I was like, "Okay, I believe we've done a really good job." Mostly credit to my wife, by the way, but like exactly what you're talking about is our more processed foods, right, are actually tucked in those drawers. Maybe they're in the pantry, but when you open the fridge, it looks like 90% like a family that wants to eat well,
Mm-hmm.
not the other way around. So, any other thoughts, tips on how to make it obvious?
No, I
I
think it
think,
could apply to exercise too, but we'll stick with the food
yeah,
today.
absolutely. And James, in the book, he uses nutrition and fitness often as examples,
Mm-hmm.
along with other ones. So again, if you're curious how this applies to other disciplines in life, again, I do highly recommend the book. I don't push books super hard often, but I'm a big fan of this one. So that was make it obvious. So find ways in which you can start to make this obvious. Have a clearly stated implementation intention, and then start making it obvious. That's the first step on that framework. Number two is to make it attractive. Okay. So here's two quotes from James. He says, one, it is the anticipation of the reward, and he's talking about dopamine release, right? It is the anticipation of the reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to take action. That's mind bending. A lot of people hear, like, oh, well, once you do something, you get this dopamine hit, and that's why you do it again. It's actually the build up to the fulfillment that is more powerful in causing us to take action. It's not necessarily the immediate gratification, though that does play into it at some point. But again, it is the anticipation of the reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to take action. And then a second quote on this from him is, pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. And that's the habit stacking, right? To a certain extent, right? So I want to have my morning coffee. And in order to achieve my ultimate goal, I need to study Italian. Therefore, I paired, and by the way, in less than a month, it's no longer a burden. I don't feel like Italian is something I need to do anymore. So that can wear off over time. It is now something I look forward to in concert with my morning coffee. I genuinely love now studying Italian in small increments. Okay. So pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. Okay. So again, that's one of my examples, but let's talk about more practically with nutrition. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you start on this one, and then I'll see if I've got anything to add. So, what's perhaps one way you could think about, or we can help listeners think about making some of these decisions and systems with nutrition attractive?
Yeah. I just want to say one thing about that first quote you said. It's the anticipation part. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like the anticipation of a vacation is what's going to get you to actually book the vacation.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool that
Yeah.
you get, some excitement out of the planning part process, even though I don't feel like I do like that part. But um, so make it attractive. So my specific one would be like, I want to listen to podcasts. I want to listen to music. I want to listen to my Bible. And so I pair it with cooking.
Oof.
And now, just like you said, I look forward to that alone time in the kitchen. No one's interrupting me. I'm just doing my thing. I don't have to, you know, worry about anything else at that time. So I'm kind of in my zone and it's really enjoyable. So
That's so
it's,
cool.
yeah.
I love
So
that.
I think making attractive cooking or whatever habit, you're looking for, or goal that you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
that would be one of mine.
Very cool. I would say this, and I'm going to go off and maybe get some flack for this on social media if we post about it, but I would say pairing food you want and,
Oh,
and
no,
I,
I love that one.
and I kind of struggle with even the language with food you need, right? But think about that. Think about like, okay, here's my general breakfast, right? And most
Mm-hmm.
Americans have a pretty, let's be candid, pretty terrible breakfast habits, right? That's what sets a tone for the rest of the day. This is probably why American culture in general is spinning out of control, because we don't start the day well. So we talk about high protein, high fiber. Most Americans are doing the exact opposite of a high protein, high fiber breakfast. But not thinking like, oh, I love having my Starbucks and my croissant. Okay, I'm not going to strip that from you, right?
Yeah.
What I'm going to say is, what would it look like to have an omelet with a
Mm-hmm.
croissant in your coffee, right? Like, what would it look like to have, um, you know, uh, something high protein, high fiber with what you currently have, or a smaller version of what you currently have? Like, pairing the food you quote want with the food that you know you need. And then
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel restrictive. It doesn't feel like you're on a diet. You don't need to wake up tomorrow and have a completely different breakfast. And you
Mm-hmm.
probably don't need to right away remove anything. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about adding, pair it in with, so that you start
Yes.
going into that offensively, not defensively or from a restriction mindset. So I would say, quite literally, to use his example of pair an action with what you want to do with what you need to do, pair a food you want with the food you need. Like, you're at a
Mm-hmm.
party and they're having pizza and salad they ordered from Pizza Hut or whatnot, and they've got a veggie tray or whatnot. Like, load up on your veggies, load up on the salad, and pair it with a piece of pizza or two, right? That's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay. What we tend to do is we just say, oh, it's a pizza party, I'll have 5 pieces of pizza, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's one that I wanted to toss out. Any thoughts on that?
I love that. That's exactly why I never use the word avoid, just
Yeah,
because you don't need to take out anything. We just need to have, the fiber to
yeah,
help us feel
totally.
full, so we can still feel full and have less of whatever, the processed food is. Or, yeah, I love that. Another one I had was, if slowing down or eating with screens is an issue. And maybe people don't even know that's an issue, but
Mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm,
really important to slow down and listen to your body. And when we're in front of a screen, even our phones, we're not paying attention and we can eat more than we really need.
mm-hmm,
So if that's maybe a goal for you, then it would be, listen to music or
mm.
light a candle or make your environment enjoyable, and take a break from the phone. And you'll actually look forward to taking a break from your phone eventually.
I love it. And
So,
even like you said earlier, like, while the weather permits, wherever you find yourself, like, eating outside is great, like,
yeah.
just, I do that often. I take a bowl out back and sit in the sun with the dog, for a couple minutes during lunch or something like that. So again, something you want to do with something you need to do is a fascinating way to make it attractive. So that's law number 2. That's fun. Number 3, make it easy. Contrary to popular belief, right? Habits are not about white knuckling your way through life in accordance with some lofty goal, right? So James Clear says this about make it easy, which is the third law of behavior change. Most people ask, how long does it take to build a new habit, right? You hear this all the time. In fact, you might have Googled it. You might have Googled it every January. All the newspapers resurface their articles about it takes 45 days, it takes 67 days, it takes 91 days and one sleep. Like, they all come up with some random. James Clear would say most people ask, how long does it take to build a new habit? The better question is how many repetitions are required to make a new habit. Think about things in life. If you played sports, if you played an instrument, if you did theater, no one ever came to you and said, all right, if you just play baseball for 97 days, you will be good. No, what are they going to say? Reps, get reps, get reps. If you're headed into a concert, it's not like, hey guys, we have 3 weeks to the concert. And we have studied that 3 weeks between start to finish of a instrumental, blah, 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 right? I played an instrument, although I sound completely dumb on this right now. But like, right? Like timeline doesn't matter. It's about, we're going to play this 15 times before we step on stage and dare perform it in front of an audience. It should be the most powerful outcomes are caused by frequency, not timeline. Okay. Because I've spent 20 years telling myself I'm going to learn Italian. Now I'm putting in the reps daily and I'm dramatically better for it. Not great. I'm still crazy novice. I'm level 1 of 100, but I am light years ahead when I've tried to binge or I've set some timeline to it. Okay. So, and then James also says this, he says, there is nothing special or there's nothing magical about time passing with regard to habit formation. It doesn't matter if it's been 21 days or 30 days or 300 days. What matters is the rate at which you perform the behavior. So it brings it down to, you probably need to make it really easy so that you can perform the reps. Okay. That's why, as I alluded to, I had to tell myself that I can only study Italian for 15 minutes. That's it. I have wanted to click through my Babbel app to the next lesson, 16 or 17 minutes. Sometimes my lesson even finishes in like 12. And I'm like, oh, could I start the next one and get 3 more minutes? And I have to tell myself, no, keep it small, keep it achievable. Think about frequency more than duration or depth even. Okay. So keeping it or making it easy is a third law of behavior change. And so this requires starting small and focusing on frequency. So Danielle, maybe what are some thoughts on how to do this? We've kind of already started to touch on it with like the breakfast analogy, right? But what are your thoughts on making it easy to begin implementing this with nutrition?
I mean, I put focus on the positives, but I feel like that's more of making it attractive. I would say it's, you know, again, not avoiding things, but what are some small things you're adding, or what are some things you're taking away from your diet. So, if you're going to eat fruit once a day, I'm going to, you know, that's small, right? That's a small, step to take. So I don't know. I think in our no diet, you know, recommendations, we're not eliminating anything. Nothing should be hard, I guess.
I know, right?
I think if we're trying to do too much at one time, maybe is when it could be overwhelming. But starting small and adding on to that as you go.
I love that, because even going back to the breakfast example, it could be that I'm going to eat half of my breakfast plate is going to be fruits and or veggies every morning, right? And then you get to pair it, right, with foods that you like. So you're making it obvious. You're having those fruits and veggies available. You're making it obvious. You're pairing it with what you want to do, right? So you're making it attractive. And then easy is I'm going to eat half my plate. I'm going to eat strawberries every morning. I'm going to eat blueberries every morning, right? That's what we're talking about, is like, make it easy and achievable. Don't think you have to overhaul the way that you eat, because then what happens on Friday night? You fail, right? Quote unquote, you fail. And then, oh, it didn't work, right? And then you spiral out of control. It happens all the time. But what if you can continue to stack up the frequency of a habit? Just start with one, start small. Maybe it's breakfast, and I'm going to start doing that. Then you're going to start to find that you can build on that over time. And then, you can keep stacking more and more habits, but start small. So I would say that's probably I think that's the spirit of that law, which is to don't think you have to overhaul your system. Don't think you have to throw everything away and eat and act completely different. What can you add in? What's a small step for you where you are that you enjoy, right? Like maybe you don't like strawberries, but maybe you love boysenberries. Great. Make it boysenberries. There's no rule that says it has to be this or that, right? If you think, oh, healthy breakfast, I don't like eggs. It doesn't have to be eggs. All right. There are other
Mm-hmm.
ways to get protein onto your dish. There's other ways to get fiber onto your dish than perhaps what you currently think. So
Mm-hmm.
I would do that. I think that's a great example of just saying, what can I add to my breakfast that Mark and Danielle would cheer for, right? Like, what would we be cheering for, right? That is in accordance with your goals, that stacks up with your current habits and rhythms. And that is one thing that you could do frequently, one small thing you could do frequently over and over and over and over and over. And I'm willing to bet it's going to start to unlock a different mentality for you. And you're going to
Mm-hmm.
start to see that it's very achievable to ultimately achieve what you want. So,
I have one more example for that. For
yeah.
cooking, I feel like I think I read something that there's a higher amount of people watching those Top Chef cooking shows or what have you. That's a good way to make it hard. Like
Oh, yeah.
if you want to be discouraged in cooking, go watch those shows. I think
Seriously.
so. If you think about, if you can read, you can cook. You just have to read the directions
Mm.
and then practice it and practice it. Or, I mean, play. Like I have lots of recipes that I don't use all the ingredients. You just sometimes is a flop. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you learn the lesson. But oftentimes it's still edible and then you can grow and get better and better. So I think starting simple with cooking and not overwhelming yourself or making, like I'm going to make every dinner tonight. No, give yourself, if you dine out 5 times a week, okay, let's take it to 4 times a week,
Yeah.
and then start the cooking process.
Yep.
So I think that's can apply to cooking as well. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. The all or nothing mentality is one of the most insidious mindset pieces that I think so
Mm-hmm.
many of us fall subject to, which is, well, if I'm not cooking every night, then I'm eating out every night. It's like, what if here's an option? What if you start with cooking one night a week and then
Mm-hmm.
continue eating four? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be these massive swings from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other. In fact, research would say that's detrimental to your long-term success. So
Mm-hmm.
number 3 is make it easy. Find ways to make these easy in a way that you can focus on the frequency of them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy. And then number 4 is make it satisfying. Okay. Now with food, I think there's an inherent bent, and that's good, to like finding food that you like and finding meals that you like so that when you actually eat them, you enjoy them. Let me give you an example. I kid you not, I right now still am obsessed with my Greek yogurt bowl that has blueberries and the Kind brand peanut butter granola. I am obsessed with it. I eat it for breakfast and I eat it as my dessert at night. Now, some of you are thinking Greek yogurt, blueberries, and peanut butter granola is not dessert. It is for me. I enjoy it that much that if given, like last night, if given the choice between a Klondike bar, a Heath Klondike bar, which is in my freezer right now, or that bowl, 99% of the time I'm going to choose that bowl. I actually enjoy it more. Right. So I'm not saying this idealistic, you just need to fall in love with all these foods. What I'm saying is there's something inherently satisfying about finding the meals that you really love. Not that someone on Instagram did in their, what I eat in a day video, but actually finding things that you enjoy. So that's kind of like the big one for me on this sense. So let's talk a little bit about a few nuggets from the book. Make it satisfying. Here's a quote from James. He says, the vital thing in getting a habit to stick is to feel successful. So we'll go somewhere with this, even if it's in a small way. Okay, so he's going to kind of take the satisfaction thing, not away from the action. He's going to take it a bit from the experience. He's going to focus a little bit more on feeling and showing that it is successful. Okay. He says the cardinal rule of behavior change is this: what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. Okay. So the first 3 laws, he would argue, increase the odds that the behavior will be performed this time. Okay. So make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy. That helps increase the odds that that behavior will be performed this time. The 4th law, which is make it satisfying, increases the odds that the behavior will be repeated next time. Okay. Now, he goes a lot into different ways to track success. So this might be a little different than where you think we were going with make it satisfying, though I wanted to acknowledge sometimes just the pure enjoyment of foods in accordance with your goals is ultimately one of the most satisfying things you can do. But I want to give you maybe a different dimension to this. And I'm not pushing this app. I went through the free trial of this app, but I did not renew. Sorry, James, if you're listening, because my language learning app has some of this built into it already. But I downloaded James Clear's Adams app just to experience it. It had a month trial. And what it does is it takes you through a lot of these themes. But what it allowed me to do is every morning after I got done with Italian, I was able to press and hold on this big circle that like rippled through, like physically, visually, like my phone vibrated, and it satisfied that that habit was achieved that day. Right. So I know this might sound a little weird, but what he's talking about sometimes is actually showing measurable progress is a way to satisfy again that this effort was worth the reward. So some things that I'll kick this one off, Danielle, if you don't mind. So like with this one, you can use a tracking app that says I'm eating strawberries every breakfast. My goal is to do it 5 days a week. Could you show me right now, if you and I were texting, could you screenshot proof that that's taking place? Could you start a note in your phone with dates and then just put a strawberry emoji next to every date that you did it? Could it be that simple, almost ridiculously simple, yet strangely satisfying that you get to add that strawberry emoji to the date because you did it again? And when you start to see in that note in your phone, those strawberries stacking up day after day after day after day, there is something beautifully, strangely satisfying about saying, oh my gosh, like I can do this. Like, look, there's proof, there's evidence, like it's happening. So again, like my language learning app, Babbel, does that. Like I have streaks, I have days. It celebrates when I finish things, right? Like lessons. And so you can create some of those own systems as well to say, what's proof? What's evidence? This could be a calendar. Are you checking off? Are you drawing a little strawberry? You have little strawberry stickers on a calendar on your fridge that you put one every day that you do. I don't know what it is, but perhaps that was a different take on it than most people think when they hear make it satisfying. They tend to think about like, oh, the dopamine release and blah, blah, blah. It's actually about showing the system is working over time. So Danielle, curious if that threw you off, or if you were someone like me that when I first was walking in to make it satisfying, I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about like the actual experience of doing it. And James would argue you've got to have measurable systems in place. And then again, that's actually very satisfying as well. So curious your thoughts on that, or how we can practically apply that to nutrition.
Yeah, I think maybe so what if, you know, if your goal is not to eat strawberries for breakfast, if it would be something like tracking your, you know, how your energy is improving, or
Love it.
if you have a weight loss goal, you know, tracking your weight, or
Totally.
pictures of yourself, you know,
So good.
visual
So
self. So it doesn't have to be, you know, kind of reminded me of stickers for children. So it doesn't have to be strawberry emojis, but like if you wanted to track progress in another way, of course.
Some would argue we never really grow up, we just get older. Okay. There's something about a strawberry sticker that would motivate the snot out of me to get some stuff done.
That's so funny.
But you're exactly right. I didn't even put it in my notes, but over the weekend, as we were preparing for this, like I did think about that. I mean, I think about some of the systems that I use with clients, and I'm refining even some of my processes coming out of this book. It's those progress photos, right? My fitness app, I use Fitbod. It's a strength training app, or I use it for strength training. And it shows my streak. It calls it my streak because I've set that I want to work out 5 days a week. It sets my streak. It celebrates when I complete the goal, all that sort of stuff. So it could be very kind of mechanical like that. It could be visual. You're right. It could be, I have a client right now who I didn't ask him necessarily, but in his weight loss journey, he is tracking his daily calories. Now we've chosen to approach his daily calories very systematically. But he's got a spreadsheet where he's actually logging day by day. He's not just, okay, I hit it today and then moving on. He's actually punching in every day the amount of calories that he consumed and then seeing what his average is very systematically. And we go through kind of how to do that. But for him, it's satisfying to put in that number and to see it and to see the days that he is stacking up in accordance with his goals. So you're right. Photos, silly spreadsheets, notes in your phone, apps. There's lots of ways to put in a system that shows, you know, progress. That in and of itself is, and James talks a lot about motivation. That in and of itself is actually what drives motivation, as opposed to motivation driving that process will actually drive motivation because you feel like you can actually get it done.
Mm-hmm. I think how it would apply. I think how it would apply to cooking is that, you know, when we start, we are like, okay, I'm going to learn to like Brussels sprouts. Okay, this steaming, didn't like that. Or
Yeah.
now I'm going to roast it. Okay, that tasted better. Okay, I'm going to roast it with something else in there, with craisins on top, or Parmesan or something like that. So
Yeah.
just finding ways to enjoy your food. Also, not just like the experience, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, like, oh my goodness, I ate Brussels sprouts 3 times in the past 3 weeks, and I actually, they're not horrible anymore, or
Yeah,
something, you know?
totally.
So that could be another way to seeing progress in your taste buds is also a satisfying.
I love it. I love it. So those are the four. So again, it may seem really simple, but that's the point, right? One, make it obvious. Number two, make it attractive. Number three, make it easy. Number four, make it satisfying. So again, make it obvious, front and center. Have that intentional plan in place, or that statement in place, and then literally make it obvious that you're someone that is working toward this system or this goal with the system, right? Make it attractive. Pair it with something that you enjoy doing. Pair it with something that you need to do, something that you want to do. Make it easy, small, focus on frequency, right? And then make it satisfying. Find a way to track your actual progress so that you can see and make it reasonable, right? Like some people will be like, okay, perfect. My goal is to work out 7 days a week. Well, that, you know, like even me, I consider myself fairly fit. Like my goal is, 4 or 5 times a week. I don't assume, because if I break 7, did I fail at the system, right? Like make it achievable and then build from there. But have a system in place so that you can measure progress. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, this is in no way intended to do justice to the book or the work that James Clear did, because I highly recommend, if this was a great starting point and you get into it, I do highly recommend vote with your dollars, buy the book, read it. It's an incredible book. It is changing how I think about some of my coaching practices, how I think about some of my own habits in my own life. But all that's to say, there are infinite ways to build new habits. Infinite ways. Hopefully we just gave you a couple examples of how this could look, but please know that this is a framework. This is not so much about what you think about your habits, but how to start thinking about habits. Okay, is through that. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. Okay, so find the systems that work for you in accordance with your goals, and start to put some of these small changes in place so that you can build on them over time. All right. So Danielle, thanks for endeavoring through these laws with me. Hopefully folks listening found some really practical, approachable ways to start down this road of building habits, ultimately in accordance, yes, with their goals, but focusing more on the systems that they have in place as opposed to the goals that they have for themselves. So if we can help in any way, whether on something like this or something else, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would love to help. You can contact us at our website, which is Imago Nutrition, imagonutrition.com/contact. If you enjoyed this podcast, would love it for you to subscribe so that you get notified wherever you listen to podcasts. Drop a review. Let us know how we're doing, and share it with a friend. We'd like to help as many people as possible with this content for free. If you're on social media, you can follow us across all major social media platforms. I'll call out one. So if you're looking for one place to start, head over to Facebook. Just search Imago Nutrition, IMAGO Nutrition, 2 words. Search for that. You will see our page come up. Like us over there, follow us. We hope to give you even more free encouragement, tips, tricks, science-based recommendations to help you achieve your goals. And as always, we'd like to thank the band Happy Pill for our theme song, Thinkin Bout Food. We'll see you next time.